recording. Perfect. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm calling this meeting to order at 5:04 p.m. In attendance, I see myself, Alice Williams, Jessica, Evelyn, Roan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Jared Osborne, Brandon Thomas, and Miss Lola Gallagher. Today we first we need to approve our agenda from for this meeting. So has everyone seen the agenda? So we're gonna need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion.
Second.
Fantastic, thank you. I got a motion from Brandon and a second from Jared. And then we have our minutes from our last meeting on the 6th, last Thursday. And we need a motion to approve those.
I'll go ahead and motion.
A motion from Evelyn, awesome. Dude,
I guess I'll second again.
I think we got a tie of a second there. Go ahead and, Jared, I'll give it to you this time. It's your first time around. Thanks for joining us. Glad to see more faces. Reports. Do we have any reports from first reports are myself? I have not gotten any reports this week. Other than to keep looking for more applicants or more people for S&A. I know we still have, I think, a couple vacancies. Have we had any reports from the advisors?
So I can't speak for Joey. I don't know if he has any. If he has something, I'll just have to bring it up in public comment when we get there.
Okay.
But I do not have anything.
Okay, sounds good. And then this week, Brady's not able to make it. I don't remember what was going on, to be honest. But I don't think we're gonna have a report from CWU because of that, are we? Would you know, Jessica?
I don't know. I'm going to say probably not. If
Okay.
Joey has something, he'll be able to add that once he joins later.
Okay. And then our next point is communications received. Once again, the only communications that I've received are I've made some recommendations for S&A. And just trying to spread the word on that. Has anyone else received any communications?
Yep, I don't have anything else on that one, Alice.
No, awesome. So new business, or no, sorry, I'm skipping one. Public comment. So time for public comment. Do we want to open the floor for a good minute? Well, I don't see anyone looking to make a comment, so we'll move on to our new business. We were reviewing program base funding programs, and we are doing campus activities through the Early Childhood Learning Center. I had been reading through them and writing down some stuff here. I don't know. We were talking about just reading them on our own this time and bringing them to the meeting. I know, Jared, this is your first time joining us, so you probably don't have any of these reviewed yourself.
Mm-mm.
But I was thinking we'll go ahead and pull up the first. Jessica, could you share the first one just briefly?
I'm just going to see if Joey is able to. Joey, if you're not, I can do it.
Yes, I can.
Oh.
Pulling it up now. Hello.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry, all got held up leaving to get here. So first one's campus activities, right?
yes.
Okay, let me pull it. Also, welcome, Jared. Let me pull up here and then I will share my screen. Maybe I'll share my screen. Can you all see? I know I need to zoom in on it, but can you all see the program review?
I mean, I personally just read this,
Whoa.
not like 5 minutes ago. Uh, I know I mean, I thought this one was awesome. All of these ones are awesome. But I did have one question about campus activities. On Article 10 or Bullet 10, they just say we're spending our budget fully. I know they do talk previously about how like changes in their budget would increase their scale. I'm just curious, like, how they think that could play out, like, but other than that, I think this is awesome. Does anybody else have any feedback on this one?
I don't have feedback. I'm going to give a little bit of information there, but also give a brief, and I apologize if you already did this, Alice, overview for Jared, so Jared knows what we're doing with these. So campus activities, the one part to know, and this is again one of the little bit of the challenges, as we had talked about from some of the recommendations or questions from the directors, is this was submitted and completed back in early January. I will tell you, since early January, there have been changes in campus activities. Our assistant director took another role on campus, so that position is vacant. We have a temp who's hired in, who just started a couple months ago, who's not filling that role, but is assisting with some of those aspects. And so the answer on number 10, I think if we were to ask now, would probably say, are there any circumstances or challenges impacting? That would be yes, because there's only one professional staff who works in campus activities and then student staff who report there. So currently our director of SLICE is stepping into most of those roles in addition to a temporary employee who's helping. So just for reference, this is one of the challenges of when we ask them the current year halfway through the year. If we're reviewing it a few months later, we don't necessarily have an fully up-to-date, accurate part to see on there. So, but otherwise, no, I think the other part in terms of the question, and I know the answer, but I'm going to put it here for the sake of this, is if you look on question number 2, which is the what are your specific goals, operations, how are you assessing? They put in here, currently all campus activities are being assessed individually with a virtual assessment starting in fall 2022. I think that would be something that we definitely want to ask for next year. How is that going? Can you provide some of the data and pieces since they had referenced that, or knowing how these things go, were there any challenges or hiccups in getting that implemented, especially knowing they were going to be starting that and then we had transition of the professional staff. So it's probably a question. And Jared, just again, welcome to your first meeting. Happy to be here and have you here. What we're doing right now is going through all of our base funded units that S&A gives money out to. They have to provide an annual financial report, which we looked at those last quarter. This quarter is a little bit more of an in-depth program review that they submit each year. And so we have chunks of them each meeting that we're going to take a look at. They're all on the website. And so as Alice was kind of alluding to, the idea this time, and I think Brandon had kind of recommended this, is, and you would not fall into this caveat, so I'm using this as a example. Look at them ahead of time. There's 11 questions on here, and really just say, hey, are there any key concerns, red flags, questions, or things you want to highlight on each of these? So that way, as they come up, it's like great campus activities. If no one has anything, because you all have ideally already looked at it, we'll move on to the next one. Next one we pull up, yeah, can we pull up and look at this question? Because I want to highlight, or can we ask a question? typically what we do in this part is we'll talk about what either is an area of concern, what we want to know more about. Jessica notes those in the minutes, but also if there's key questions or like, hey, we want to ask campus activities this question to get a response back this quarter, we make note of that, and so we can send those out and get the information back. Or general feedback, yeah, we would love to see this next year, and we make note of those things. So hopefully that was a really quick but gives a brief overview of what it is we're doing with these program reviews. Anything anyone else would kind of add to that? Again, just a super speed round to get Jared somewhat up to speed on what we're doing.
You should be happy because I've already seconded 2 motions.
Perfect. That's what we need. Yeah. See, you're already on it.
I know I've personally talked to Jared about our committee many a times.
Good. Thank you. Well, in that case, if anything comes up, and again, I'll touch base with you offline. I haven't had a chance to respond back to your email that you sent, but I'll follow up with you. If you have questions, you can reach out to me, but also you can just ask them. I mean, we're a pretty open committee. We learn as we go with some of this too. So
when in doubt, blame Alice. Got it.
Yep. Yeah. We're like, Alice never say. Yeah. Any other things on campus activities you all want me to pull up or highlight? Cool. I see Brandon and Evelyn both saying no. I'm just going to go back to the list. And again, I know we pretty much went through just these ones here on the agenda, but the next one there's campus community garden. But again, I don't know if no one has anything specific. I won't necessarily pull it up and go through the whole thing. Anything on campus community garden, Alice?
I don't think I really had much. No, I mean, I think they're all good answers. I mean, they give us good info. I like what they had to say. I'm interested to see they're talking about doing more gardening beds to do more community gardening. That sounds nice. But I don't, does anybody else have anything? Nobody else has anything about this one? Oh, Brandon? Yeah.
I was just gonna say that seems like the community garden knows what they're about, and they kept their report simple and sweet, and that's really all it really needed to be. I think they illustrated everything nicely, and like when on question 6, when they broke down who utilizes it, they gave percentages, and we're like, this is why we have the data we do. Yeah, I think they just did a pretty good job, and I always like the idea of having a community garden, so I hope they just keep up what they're doing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Cool. I will say this before I move on to it, and I know theirs is different than others. I do greatly appreciate their succinctness in their answers, knowing we are reading through all of these. They didn't keep it vague. They didn't not answer a question, but they kept it specific to here's what you asked for, here's the information. There wasn't a lot of fluff and extra stuff to kind of weed through. So
To me, that shows competency or extreme nervousness.
either one. We'll err on the side of we'll say it's competency. Okay, career services West Side counselor.
I had just a quick question about the supplemental PDF. If we could, if you
Pull that up.
Kind of, obviously, if you've seen the other ones, you can tell that not all of them have the supplemental PDF, so I just figured it'd be good to look at it now just in case we had problems in the future.
Yeah. I'm just slowly scrolling for the sake of everyone and the recording.
I will say it is nice to have this data.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really nice. This would be back at that what was it? The old data though, right? Like this wouldn't be quite up to date yet.
Yeah, so this would have been back, and I don't think they say at the beginning of this, I think they allude to it in their part. This is last year's data because they ran the full year, so they didn't provide for this year, but also this year would have really only been fall quarter at the point they were reporting on it. So I do like that they break it down by the campuses, and I think this gives a good highlight of the different parts that this role does. There's the events parts and kind of touches on what each one is. Now, not all of these it specifies, but seeing it, so I'm like, oh, that's cool to see there. And then it gives the breakdown by appointments that were direct appointments and then just other general interactions. So. Yep.
Yeah, they laid that out good. Almost wish we had nice charts for all of them like that. But I know we can't expect that of everybody.
I think that's some of the I mean, that's one of the things, not everyone, like in all, we're not there yet, but I'll pick on one that's hard, is like the student union building. They can give us the clicker, and they will, and you'll see, they give us the clicker data for how many people come in the door, or in how many events that via scheduling and things, but each program is so unique that sometimes it's hard to know. But and that's why I like that we give them the flexibility. I'm like, how are you collecting data to show those different types of interactions? And I wish all of them had that level of detail. And some do. You'll see others that have it as well, but not everyone does. Anything else with career services?
No, I kind of like the bullet format they had. It was very, to the point.
So Central News Watch, one of the first of our student media ones. Does anyone want me to pull anything up on them?
I just had previously about checking in on roles. They mentioned that there was a vacancy and then they hired a temporary business manager in 2022, and that they are, as of January 9th, 2023, they've hired someone to fill in that position. And just, check in to see how that's been going is always a nice thing to maintain.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good one. And I've had the chance to recently interact and meet with that new hire to go over some of our S&A stuff. And so only interaction I've had that seems to be doing well was asking the right questions, was aware of some of the things, touching base with some of the people who've been there for a while. So hopefully that'll help give them next year some more consistency without that vacancy, with that position filled going into the next academic year.
I do see that. Oh, is it number 8? They're talking about they didn't have a stable business manager for a year, but then after that they hired a temporary manager, but that person left. That doesn't sound promising.
Yep. That was the last year, and so that was the transition they were in, and that's the position they finally got hired just last quarter.
Okay,
Was the new manager. Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, those transition pieces can create a bit of a challenge for some of these units, especially when you have someone come in and then leave and then
Right.
have to find a new person.
Yeah, I mean, the only other comment I really had on this one was they mentioned the enrollment decline at the end, which, I'm always seeing that one mentioned a lot lately.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing they can really do about that. That's not their. I mean, it's just more interesting to see, I suppose.
Well, absolutely. One thing that I think, and we'll have to look at the other student media. I know we've gotten some more information in the past, but I know this may be one of the gaps with that funds manager, or not funds manager, with their business manager position is the metrics on who utilizes it. So Central News Watch, they're not going to be able to give us the specifics on like the demographics, because again, for those who are aware, the Central News Watch function is really the using the operating the news reporting things. However, it'd be interesting to know just the statistics of how many people are accessing their videos on the social media and on their website. How many clicks and hits are they getting? I think the hard part would be, I mean, and I'll say this on my own, like I would have no idea what is a good number, what is not a good number in relevance, because it's not like any of our other programs, but I think that would be helpful to share and report out so we can look at, is that growing or declining over the course of time, and what are they doing with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure they could at least share like how many clicks and stuff. Sorry, Jared.
No, I feel like trending is the important bit of information there, as Joey
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is next on here? So Diversity Equity Center. One of our bigger funded programs. I'll just pull it up anyways. But anything anyone wants me to specifically look at in here? Oh, sorry.
I was just saying this was the one with the pretty pictures, and I remember it standing out because of that. So they have
Let's scroll.
great like
Sure.
statistics here.
Now, some of the names on here have transitioned, so just be aware of that. But the programming part of it is still how they have it set up within a lot of these.
Right. But they also like later down they tell us how many veterans they served, which I was found interesting. In their I guess what am I looking at? Number 6?
I was gonna say I think it's on this one, but I think it's on the next.
Oh, the
part.
next, yeah,
Yeah, this
table.
part here.
Like I know I've personally worked with several veterans on campus, and I'm always interested to see how many are served by our student services.
Yeah. Well, the part that I think is interesting, I mean, and so this is one of the areas, and I know this area obviously well. It's one of the areas in my unit. They utilize Presence as their software, and so anyone coming to their programs or events, specifically in their office space, but also most of the others, they use the Presence check-in, which is how they're able to get the data on how many, like you can see out of from September to March of last year, they had 607 unique students. So multiple of them returned. Again, you can look down here. Several out of the 607, I mean, you can look, most people are returning 4-ish times at least to programs and services, but the breakdown of where they fall in terms of demographics, I think is interesting. I think Evelyn has a question.
Oh, sorry, Evelyn.
No, you're fine. This might be a stupid question, but on number 7, you just brought up the 607 unique attendees. What's the difference between the unique attendees and the new attendees?
So that's a good question that we can ask them to clarify. It's not a stupid question at all. because they have returning and then the deck events total within that. The hard part, I would say, this is how I would read it, is the returning makes it difficult because that number is obviously larger. I think if we go up, and this is what I want to look, so I apologize as you're all forced to go along with me on this trip. Right here is what they list as the total number, the 2,368 attendees. And so I think the hard part is ignore the unique for the sake of this. Out of that, 2,561 are returning. They've come multiple times or potentially even from the previous. 338 are brand new. They haven't come before, but that's a different number with the 607 who are unique. Those are counting people multiple times. But it would be helpful to get some more clarity on that. And so if we can make a note of that, Jessica, can we get a little more nuance? Because I love the data, but also it's hard if you don't know what that means in the context.
Thank you.
Yep. Not at all a bad question. It was really a good question. I will share this, and this is not in here, but I will tell you, I know they have a massive amount of data. They actually have a graduate student who works in the deck whose primary job is their assessment. And so if anyone is interested, they love to talk about their data, and they have a massive booklet that they will put. And so the graphs and stuff we just looked at with career services and others, they have that for like every event, and they have feedback about the programs. They have the data. So I think this is more the director trying to pull everything together, because I know they gave them a massive amount like here, and they're like, we can't give 200 pages of supplemental in this form. But if you're interested, they would love to share that info with you in the deck.
Yeah, I did notice they put some points in here about how that data is collected, which is really cool.
Yeah. Okay. Any other deck things we want to highlight or ask questions on?
I didn't have any other.
Great.
I'm seeing shaking heads. So
The Early Childhood Learning Center, our ECLC, another one of our big base funded units. Questions, things on here with this one? I know we had some questions when you all looked at the annual financial reports before.
I don't recall anything jumping out when I read through this. I was skimming it real quickly just now. I mean, they're pretty straight to the point here, which I mean, I like. On number 9, I am curious. They talk about how budget reductions could reduce the number of children in each classroom that are allowed to enroll. I guess I'm just curious to see how that would fluctuate in consideration of also low enrollment. Like, is that still a huge concern with low enrollment? I guess is my question.
So I can answer a little bit of that one, Alice, having worked with them for a number of years and having had children go through that program as well. So saying there's a bias here, but also more information. So what I'd say there's, ironically, the enrollment for the university has not really had an impact on the demand that ECLC has had. They've consistently had more demand than they have spaces. And so with us having less students, it has not seen them have open spaces. They still, and they allude to this in here, maybe not as directly as what I'm saying, but they have constantly have wait lists in each of their grades and classes because there's more demand than they can fit. The part where it would require them to do lower enrollment is if there's further reductions in the budget. Where those reductions come from is they have professional staff who are the leads for each classroom, and then they hire student staff as well who come in. The reduction would have to come from the student staff pieces because that's the easier and the more flexible part. With having less students also means there are less bodies in each classroom, and there are state guidelines for you have to have so many responsible adults who are certified for X, like each adult you can provide for, and the age range is different. But like for each one, you can have 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the age they're at. And so if they reduce the number of student staff working, that means they also have to reduce the number of children that they can have in there because they don't have enough certified staff to be there in the presence. So it creates this weird domino effect of they actually need more people to work and more space because they have so much demand. But if they have to reduce the budget parts further in the student staff, that means they can't have as many children enrolled because they don't have enough certified individuals.
Yeah. Think that makes a lot of sense. My mom runs a school. They have the same problem with the wait list.
Yeah.
Early childhood. That, yeah, no, I don't have any questions for them really. I mean, I think they do great work. I know some of their student staff personally, and I have friends that have their kids go there.
The only part that I might recommend to you all, and you can say, no, we don't think this is, but otherwise we can put in there, is on question 7. I mean, they identified that they do gather information on income, race, and ethnicity. I don't specifically know what would be helpful, but I know we're asking others for the metrics and the specific demographics, which is going up here, right, into question 6. And they mentioned most of the student parents are 0 to low income. Most are first generation, but it doesn't give a breakdown necessarily on race, ethnicity, or even other statistics. And so that might be something, since we're asking for others, they say they have it, that we could ask them, can you give that at least for the student parent part so we know who is utilizing the programs to get a better sense?
I like that idea. I mean, I could see it being possibly a little much to ask for or considered so, but it's not something I don't think it's too much to ask, at least.
Just to play devil's advocate, would having that information change any of the decisions that we make?
I think to answer that, and so I'll tell you the reason those questions are asked, Jared, is because we've had questions, not about ECLC in the past, but about programs in general of who is utilizing and benefiting from the programs. And because we don't have the data, that was kind of the question of like, well, we don't know. And so ECLC specifically, what they've been asked, which is why I appreciate the answer, they have been asked for the demographics of how many students do you serve versus staff do you serve? Because the concern there has been, we don't want to be funding you from student money if you're primarily serving staff. Some of our other programs and areas, it's been more, okay, what is the demographic? Are you really only serving this population of students, not that more broadly? So it could in a future year when we're looking at the base funding provide some impact or questions on like, hey, is there a reason you are not serving more diverse student populations? I think it leads down a path that ideally the director and them are looking at of who are we serving, and we're talking race and ethnicity. What is the race and ethnicity of the student parents who are in here versus who are on the wait list? Is there any glaring pieces or discrepancies that we should look at or not. I don't know if that really answered your devil's advocate question, Jared.
Well, the reason why I asked that is that if, and I understand where you're coming from there, and I agree with a lot of that. My question is just if we are considering whether or not to essentially fund student services in the means of childcare, then that's more of a function, in my opinion, of us funding childcare rather than necessarily funding minority childcare or underrepresented childcare, because there's different slices that you can take of this and how you look at it. I just didn't see a meaningful distinction for this one particular thing for demographics.
No, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you, Jared. I think that's what I was saying on, for them specifically, their question has been about that. But I also don't want to speak for the students who created this in the past. That was kind of my general, this is what they've asked for, but I don't know what the future committee will ask for.
No.
That's a great point. Any
What can I say?
other?
I like
Okay.
data.
Yeah. So do I.
Yeah, I don't have any other thoughts on this one.
Anyone else with ECLC? What was, and I don't have the agenda in front of me because I have this pulled up. What was the last one we were going to? Was it KCWU?
ECLC.
That was.
Oh, was that the last? Oh,
That
good.
was the
Then
last
we're done. We're done. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll just keep cruising through them if we're, no.
Honestly, I think reading them ahead of time helped me a lot to know what was going on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now, Jared, you will know coming into next week. I will send out, I will let you all know with the supplemental funding requests I had referenced last week. They weren't available this week, so that will be on the agenda next week. With that, I'll also build it. So we'll probably have less program reviews. So I build in time for them to present and for you all to ask questions. But we'll still have a couple program reviews on there. We'll send the agenda out ahead of time. And so take a look with where those are. But I will say this is one of those as we look at, and I'll say this in a general sense. I know we had a couple last quarter, but also with Jared, this being your first meeting. We've not had supplemental funding. And so this is one-time funding coming in until last quarter. We had a few that came in that we did recommend funding, and those got approved up by our CFO. As we look at it, being intentionally asking questions about what is the use, because there are a couple others who are saying they might come in this quarter. And so letting you all know, thinking we are in a budget situation and crisis and crunch, and trying to stay within our debt service ratio to be mindful of, if we're funding things, what is the rationale and purpose? Also knowing that may mean funding is coming from somewhere else. And for some of these that may come up later is also thinking ahead of any precedent that it sets. Next week's is not going to necessarily, well, it could be. It could set a precedent. You'll see when it comes up. But being mindful of like whatever justification we use to either fund or not fund or partially, being really intentional in our discussion the week after, because we want to be consistent as others come and ask similar requests that we're using a consistent. They could be the only ones, or I can tell you there could be multiple others who may come in and ask a very similar request. And just to caution you all that my role is one, the financial part. Since we don't have a funds manager right now, I get to wear both hats. So I'll give you a little bit of that tip, but more the procedural part of we need to make sure we're being consistent. And so if Evelyn comes in and is requesting money for this program and we say yes, and the next week Brandon comes in and is requesting for a different program, but the same rationale, we have to have a good reason on why we wouldn't say yes within that. So being as responsible as we can, but also trying to be intentional with the student experience. We want them to be able to use the money while they have it and be mindful that we are in a budget crisis too. So I say all this before you see any requests, because my job is here just to answer questions procedurally. I'll give you all a financial feedback, but I have to be as neutral as I can in the aspects. So don't ever take anything I say, other than I'll tell you if I'm playing devil's advocate, does not mean I'm in favor or opposed. Just making sure you all have thought through all aspects.
Sounds like you're the group's parliamentarian.
I can operate in that way of like, well, did you think about? Also, because I'm the one administratively who has to go in and answer to the other people, being like, hey, why did they fund this, or why did they not fund this? It's like, well, it's the student voice. I mean, try and make it as clear as we can. This group is always really good. I mean, you all this year, what we had winter quarter, but even in past years have been very intentional, great questions asked, and very thoughtful of what you all move forward. And so I know you all will continue doing that as well. So, but there's at least one on the horizon that's come in. I have quite a few more people who have asked questions preliminarily to explore, are there options? I'm like, well, you could. We'll see if they do.
Okay.
So, but with that, since I didn't have my advisor report, I would have said all that earlier, so I apologize. You can put that under advisor report, Jessica.
The forewarning helps a lot to be aware of what's going on.
When it's always hard, and I know you all saw this a little last quarter, Jared, you haven't yet, and I don't know if you've had experience with this. It's always hard because when people are coming asking for funding, there's always a really good and sound reason, right? Typically it's not coming in and it's out of the, like there is a benefit that comes from it. There's a strong justification behind it. So it can be really hard because you all have to weigh that and look at just the precedent consistency and look at the financial part. And so sometimes we have to be the group who's like, yep, we're the ones who help to fund things and make things happen. And so people love that. Or sometimes we have to be the ones to say, unfortunately, no, we're not going to be able to, for whatever reason. And it's a tough role to be in when someone comes and asks you, hey, can you fund this thing? And personally, you're like, that's an awesome program, or that's an awesome conference to go to, or speaker to bring in. I would love to attend that. And I'm going to have to vote no on it, knowing I personally would like that.
I mean, if we could approve everything, then we wouldn't need to exist.
Exactly. That's a great point. Just be a, yep, we got the money. Here you go. Sign the check. Moving on. Yeah. Very good point.
With that, we have old business on the agenda. Is that just discussing how we do the review process, like we've been doing, or is there more?
Honestly, that was supposed to be pulled off.
Okay.
So yeah, there's no old business. That was a leftover from last week's agenda.
Gotcha.
It's just there to scare you.
Yeah. It's to see if you're paying attention, Al.
Well, thank you for testing me.
Yeah. It's like the S&A Committee's green M&Ms.
With that, Article 10, public comment, second call. Just opening the floor for a brief minute. Would anybody like to make a comment?
I think the only, oh, go ahead, Lola, just unmuted.
Oh, I was just going to say, if anyone's in the CERC, that the debates are starting at 6 for the candidates for student government.
Thank you, Lola. That is exactly what I was going to say. That's why as soon as you unmuted. Also on that note, while the official filing closed yesterday, I believe for those positions, if anyone does know of anyone who is still interested, there's still the late filing option, and would definitely encourage as many people who are interested in running and serving on the ACWU executive board next year to come and express your interest. Also for the student senator positions as well. So please help spread the word.
Awesome. Will do. I'll share that with some student social media discussions. Other than that, I think we just have adjournment left on the agenda then. So I will call this meeting to adjourn at 5:49. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, Jared, for making your first meeting.
Welcome, Jared. See you all next Thursday. Have a good week.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Take care.